Are you ready to rumble? Podcast number 3. David, we're here.
Jack, where would you rather be talking about HR tech? So thanks for having me along again.
No, thank you very much. And a little shout out to David. Happy birthday for yesterday.
Another year older and deeper in debt, as the Violent Femmes, I think, might have said. So
Growing wiser.
Wiser. Let's hope so.
Well, thanks for being here on Digital Directions podcast number 3. Today we're talking about the top HR tech trends you need to know about if you're an Australian SME. What are you looking forward to the conversation today?
I think it's important. So we've kind of set the scene over the last couple of podcasts talking about kind of some macro issues. What are the drivers for why an SME would invest in HR tech, and what are the levers for driving ROI? So that helps kind of set the scene, but it's not a static environment. You know, it's dynamic, it's changing.
Yep.
So what we want to talk about now are some of the kind of trends that we're seeing at the leading edge of the market now, that our clients and people, decision makers in SME land need to be thinking about as they're looking at HR and payroll software. So I think there's some key themes that we want to share with them, and I think it'll be, hopefully really valuable.
It's really important to kind of help our customers be brought up to speed with what we're seeing in this current moment, because it is evolving so quickly. What has changed in the last 6-12 months, particularly the buzzword for today will be AI. So stay tuned for that. But, particularly in that space, or more kind of functional features within the platform have changed so much. So we're looking forward to the conversation today to bring you guys up to speed to where we're, seeing the trends today.
It's almost a paradox. When things are changing quickly, it almost becomes hard to make a decision. What if the thing I choose now is redundant in 6 or 12 or 24 months? So it's a real trade-off of making a good, measured, long-term decision, but not missing kind of key trends and opportunities that are coming. So hopefully we can help, find the right balancing act in that.
David, please kick us off. Where do you want to start with the conversation today? What's number 1 on the trend list?
I think the overarching theme that we've seen, and this hasn't just been in recent months, this has been building and building over recent years, is the unification of HR and payroll systems. It used to be that perhaps you might have thought of them as both just independent but kind of critical systems that an SME needs. No longer. They're now better thought of as partner systems. They have to work in lockstep, they have to share data, they need to create kind of a seamless experience for users and for admins. And they're systems now that you don't go out and buy independently. They're actually becoming critical, integration and unification of those systems is a key driver of who and when and how you buy those systems now.
I think you're absolutely right. We're hearing it very often and frequently with our customers around, do the systems talk to each other? And I think that's a key point we'll touch on, is like the technology and how they actually integrate and work with each other, versus the other kind of style is it an all-in-one versus best-in-breed point solutions that talk to each other off the shelf or via kind of, integration built connectors?
I think that is absolutely true. And to perhaps try and sum it up, it's not something that's now just a post-sale problem. We're going to just bolt that on. It's actually a pre-sale differentiator. Do these systems natively talk together? Are there proven, market-proven solutions out there where they're working? And so I think helping customers demystify some of the challenges around integration. What is integration? How does it work for these two key systems? What degree and type of integration do I need? They're key challenges that we are talking through with our customers every day to make the right investment decisions around HR and payroll.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely layers to the level of integration that you can go to, and kind of a minimum requirement is ensuring that from a user data perspective that they're accurate and people aren't double touching systems. And so when someone's created over here in HR, they should be created over here in payroll to ensure that there's, a clear line of data, that there's no discrepancy on, information or critical information, whether it's payroll, salary information. But taking it beyond that, a big thing we're hearing about at the moment is discrepancies between the leave data in different systems. Now we're finding HR systems that have kind of time and attendance, leave management kind of capability, we're finding them becoming the source of truth. And that then creates a bit of an error in the back end of a company, which is the accounting principles. Leave management has always historically been in the payroll and finance system. And so very quickly, if there's no real good connector or no true integration between those two systems, we're finding a lot of customers having issues with discrepancies in leave data. Talk to me about how important it is to get that right for the employee experience, the compliance risks that do come with that, and ensuring that we're identifying the right technology to use.
Now, it may have been the case that in the past that lived with payroll. I'm kind of tend to be agnostic. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer about where it lives, but it's a key architectural decision that needs to be surfaced. The right stakeholders and with advice from someone like us and vendors need to be clear on that. And then workflows and configuration can flow from that. So be clear about that as a key guiding principle up front. And then you've just started to touch on, I think, you said efficiency. We don't want double handling. We don't want having to kind of enter names and enter information in both systems. So efficiency, one key driver. You just touched on the other, which is compliance. I think we need to recognize that the compliance environment that SMEs are operating in now is heightened. There's a lot more teeth around the risks for SMEs and for all businesses in the kind of Australian environment today, whether it's Fair Work Australia or Right to Disconnect or Right to Work, STP2, all of these kind of issues are meaning that compliance needs to be locked down, and that means HR and payroll have to be seamless, have to be talking to each other.
Absolutely. I think really another critical point is the employee experience. If they're logging into multiple different platforms where leave balances are different, it is unclear. There is confusion. There might be kind of a sense of which one is accurate, which one should I use. It should be very clear to them as an employee of an organization, particularly in the SME space, to create high quality kind of user experience, that they go in and they know what the right system is to utilize, to engage with, and actually future plan leave. A lot of people are booking leave well in advance. The balance is so critical. And I think also from an accounting perspective in the back end where finance is managing this and doing payroll to ensure it's accurate, like you touched on, the risk associated to getting that wrong is far too significant now more than ever.
And listen, I was talking about risk from a legal and compliance point of view. Equally important, there's the risk around engagement with your employees. At the heart of any business's employee value proposition is trust. Employees need to trust in their employer. And am I being paid the right amount on time, in the right way? That speaks to the heart of that relationship. And so if your systems are not enabling that and facilitating that in a really smooth and intuitive way, then all the goodwill in the world and all of the higher order things that you might want to do with your workforce around development and engagement, they're going to be undermined if there's not a bedrock of kind of integrity and compliance around the payroll function. So it touches so many parts of a small business.
I got a question for you that someone asked me recently from the perspective of purchasing new HR technology. Should we buy HR and payroll from the same vendor? When we think about what we're going through right now in terms of unification of HR and payroll, how critical it is to ensure data accuracy and compliance risk and all the rest of it, user experience, should they be buying HR and payroll from the same vendor?
Well, we're talking about unification, and that's critical to getting the right overall outcome in your ecosystem. But I would put it to you that it doesn't mean you have to buy them from the same vendor. I'm sure a vendor would like to think that you will, but you don't want to sacrifice features and functionality and support and other kind of critical elements, terms and conditions, commercial terms. You still need to be making a balanced assessment across all of those elements across HR and payroll to come up with the right solution for you. Now, if that means it's all under one umbrella, great. But the challenge or the need to integrate an HR to an external payroll isn't one that should kind of scare you off buying them and bring them together if they're the right solutions for you.
I think particularly organizations that maybe haven't done this frequently or have the right technology experts internally at the business, or they maybe not have gotten the support from the IT team yet. They might be a little bit earlier in the conversation. It definitely just seems a bit easier to buy from the one vendor rather than going out and going, what's the best payroll and best HR system for our business? And that kind of speaks to the ideal vendor profile that we take our customers through. But I agree, I don't think it should scare you away that you have to buy from the same vendor just because it's easier. You should really be critically evaluating the different systems that are in market, whether they're from one vendor or not, but ensuring that there is robust integration capability that will ensure you get kind of the best of both worlds as if it were one vendor. But what that means is you are still creating one source of truth, whether that's HR or payroll, but getting access to two systems that potentially are more suitable or a better fit for you as an organization.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly well said. You can get that outcome that you're striving for from one vendor with two solutions or two vendors with independent solutions. You can still arrive at the same outcome.
Absolutely. Okay, David, we're now going to move into trend number 2. This is all about, I guess, a modular HR system or a modular piece of software that is going to be more of a scalable solution. I think the lens we always take for our customers is the next 10 years. This is an investment for the next 10 years. We don't want to rip and replace this within 5 years. We know the kind of costs associated to that. Talk to me about scalable solutions and how potentially a modular system, to me that's kind of more true mid-enterprise grade solutions in market, could work for you as an SME in Australia.
Our listeners and HR buyers will be very well acquainted with the all-in-one system and collections of point solutions that each do a part of the puzzle and trying to knit them together. This concept of buying a solution but not necessarily unlocking or using all of the breadth of functionality that it might offer, but being very purposeful about what do I need as a business today, what might I need in future, and to right size. This, because what you don't want is a bloated system that suddenly you're paying for, areas of functionality, whether it's performance management or employee engagement surveys that are nice to haves, but are not a critical need to have for you and your business today. So I think that's what we're driving at when we talk about modularity. Use what you need, but have the strategic option to unlock what you might need in future as your business grows and evolves over time.
For me, it's being realistic in where your business is now and going, how can I find a great system for where we're at currently, but being strategic enough to look at a lens of the next 10 years and going, it would be great to have some learning and development functionality. It would be great to have a great performance management or cultural engagement tool over the next 3, 5, 10 years. It's a long horizon. And so you mentioned this concept a little while ago that I really like, is kind of like the Lego stack. Put in what you need now, build a great foundation, and then you can swap in and out pieces as your business needs, rather than kind of being stuck with an all-in-one system where potentially you're bringing in other HR software. And I think this is something that a lot of people are bringing to the table. Something we're seeing a lot with our customers when we do a procurement is they've got overlapping functionality. They're trying to find a new potential fit for a HR system. Potentially it's an all-in-one and therefore it has overlapping functionality. The way to mitigate that is finding a true enterprise modular system that can scale with your business, and maybe you're still using external cultural kind of engagement surveys or other pieces of software that you can replace over a period of time based on it being a modular system. What else is really critical to modular versus all-in-one systems from your perspective, David?
Again, we talked in our last session about ROI. And what's an ROI killer is when you're paying for functionality that you're not using because either you don't need it or you haven't gone through the change management and the employee adoption measures to get the best out of it. So when you start paying for, per employee per month for stuff that you're not using, that's a drain, and it makes the whole investment and the whole system kind of look bad. The other thing that, kills a business is when you've outgrown a system and you're then faced, all right, do I keep, struggling with the constraint of a system that's no longer fit for purpose, or do I go through the massive challenge of jumping over to a whole new system? That's where modularity is a middle ground. Buy and use what you need today, but you won't outgrow the system because it's got the functionality that you might need tomorrow. So I think understanding each SME is on a journey. And I think the other thing that's critical here, let's understand, small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses will fluctuate in size much more often and much more wildly than medium and large businesses, which tend to have a degree of inertia. So small businesses grow very rapidly. Unfortunately, they can also contract rapidly. So understanding what journey you're on, what size are you likely to be in 12, 24 months, 5 or 10 years down the track, if you can be clear about that and build out a view of what you might need down the, further down the path, that will help guide you to the right overall solution and the right, modular solution that you need right today.
I think another interesting component when we look at modular systems versus, kind of more your off-your-shelf all-in-ones that exist for the SME space is probably price point. I think probably because of the larger end of town, your SAPs, Workdays, etc., have probably created a misconception that if it's modular, it's going to be really expensive. And I don't think that's always going to be the case. And what we've seen anyhow in, the SME HR world, there definitely is affordable tools that are really fit for purpose for a business, but have the opportunity to scale with you. Because if you do rapidly scale, like you said, these small businesses are on a fast growth kind of pace. In 5-10 years time, and they've doubled, tripled their headcount, from a price point perspective, they're going to have to replace their system anyway because of, what you said, they will simply outgrow an off-the-shelf small software.
Modular / all-in-one solutions versus, a collection of best of breed. You need to be clear what is critical and what drives competitive advantage in your business. And it's not across the board, but for every business, there is one part of it or a handful of parts that are critical. For you, is it you've got a frontline workforce that is kind of casualized and it's all about rostering and time and attendance? That's where you need to invest. So for that part of the stack, you need the best there is, and you need to bring in a point solution that plays well with your core HR. But for other parts, it's about, this off-the-shelf generic kind of functionality that I get with my modular system is fine and does the job. So price point and, degree of expertise and degree of functionality that any solution brings, you need to make critical evaluations of that.
And it also really enables that stage-based investment. So it reduces the risk of, let's say you don't have to go for a full suite now. Maybe you've got some pre-existing technology that's kind of doing what it needs to do in the business, whether that's surveys or some L&D kind of content. It's a great point to note that when we look at long-term investment, you're de-risking it up front by finding a modular system that is fit for purpose now. So enabling stage-based investment is another crucial component to evaluating suitability or fit for purpose of new software.
I think you make a great point, and alongside that kind of stage-based investment, I think is also just the natural bandwidth of a small business to digest change. If you throw out all of the functionality across all of your HR tech stack and try and change everything all at once, that is, that's a huge risk. And so being able to stagger that change over a period of time, as you need more advanced functionality, as your business grows, as your headcount grows, that's, as you say, the key point, de-risking. Because what we want to get to is the outcome of a fit-for-purpose, scalable HR solution embedded in your business, working well, delivering the critical functionality you need. We don't want to do anything that will jeopardize and put that outcome at risk. So a staged investment, both financially and in terms of the implementation and change effort, makes a lot of sense.
Something that we're hearing a lot from our customers is shifting the lens on the reality for how much bandwidth they do have and going, we would love to do performance management and do some internal surveys or do some talent kind of management, but we know that's 12, 24 months off. So it's nice that they don't have to pay for something they're not really going to use realistically for the next 2 years. And at that point in time, they can do it well. They've got a great foundation, new modern HR software. People have started to utilize it. There's adoption, engagement, and I guess the awareness of that it exists. So when it comes to doing performance management the first time round, maybe that's 12, 24 months later, there's already a great platform for it to be successful and there to be adoption, rather than trying to do everything out of the gate and try and get all the value from a new system within the first year. I think sometimes that can be a little bit unrealistic and setting themselves up for failure.
Less is more sometimes. And these transformations, I wouldn't say they're fragile, but they do rely on goodwill. They rely on a belief among your workers that these new systems you're rolling out are good for them, will deliver, value and engagement and functionality for them. So doing slightly less and delivering on that promise is what earns you the right to then roll out more as you go on. So yeah, kind of reducing the scope, executing well in your transformation is the best platform for ultimately broader based change.
Awesome. Let's move on to number 3. This one's a little bit close to me. It's dear to me. It's all about customer success and local support. I think for Australian businesses, particularly in the SME space, it's critical that they get the love that they deserve and that they need to ensure the success of an impactful investment in new technology. To your point earlier, it's now a differentiator in the sales process and buying technology, understanding what type of support are they going to get, because from a bandwidth perspective, are they really going to get the most out of a system when they're already doing their day job? Implementation is so hard. Beyond implementation, just maintaining and getting the most out of the system, we want to ensure that there is true, proactive, valuable customer success and account management from these software vendors. What does it mean to you? I'm a little bit passionate about it.
I can hear the lived experience that you've had kind of at the front line of kind of a customer success role, and that kind of comes through in everything that you're building in our business. For me, as in a past life, wearing the hat of a VC, so a venture capital investor investing in innovative technology companies, there was a great concept that I kind of turned to a lot, which was this concept of the whole product. And it was from a great book called Crossing the Chasm, so go and check it out if you haven't read it. But it's this concept that there's kind of layers to the overall solution, the overall product that you're bringing to market. It's not just the feature set and the functionality and the prices, but it is the support, it's the implementation methodology, it's all of those other elements that come together at the end of the day to deliver a successful outcome. And yeah, so I would absolutely be urging SME buyers in this space to be looking at the whole service, the whole product, and in particular support as key differentiators, as key criteria for how they make a selection. We certainly do that in our kind of ideal vendor profile scoring because SMEs need more support. They have less in-house bandwidth and capability in these kind of areas, so they're more likely to have to lean on support. So finding a vendor who's not just a vendor, but is a partner, I think is critical.
I think a big shift when we're talking trends that I've seen over the last 12 to 24 months is really starting to bring customer success or, account management into pre-sales rather than going through a sales cycle, hand over to a CSM, you never hear from sales again, and it's all of a sudden becomes a customer success manager's problem or the implementation manager's problem. They're a lot more collaborative in their approach, which I think is a really crucial element, particularly when we're starting to differentiate key points between one particular vendor and another is the level of involvement that pre-sales and post-sales that is happening to ensure success, that everyone's on the same page for understanding what are their objectives, what are their requirements, what are their key criteria of success. So I think that's a really positive step forward in terms of a trend that we're seeing, but there definitely are still a lot of horror stories that we're seeing on LinkedIn. I know there's a couple recently, Reddit as well. There's a whole chain of threads of, people who are really struggling to, I email them, I call them, I don't hear from anyone. What would you say for people who are going through the kind of buying cycle at the moment when trying to evaluate customer success, who might be there or might not be there, the support that they're getting? How important is that for the return on investment piece?
It's essential. So like I just said before, support amongst all of these other elements needs to be a part of your due diligence. How do you go about assessing that? There's going to be information that you're going to get from your vendor and questions you can have. And as you rightly pointed out, we're seeing a lot more of those kind of non-salespeople, customer success managers and the like, being brought into sales processes. That's a tick. I think that's important. But it's also vital, I think, and this is where, digital directions as an advisor has a role to play and can help. You've got to do your own homework. Go and find other customers of that vendor in your industry, in your location, to get a bit more from the horse's mouth kind of evidence and feedback about what it was like working with that customer, post go live. What kind of support, did they deliver on the kind of promises that they made? So I think it's critical to do your homework in that kind of space. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is I think in the HR tech world, we're really well served here in the Australian market. And I think I've mentioned this before. We've got a lot of homegrown champions. Unlike other sectors, other categories of software, we've got great companies who are large players in the HR tech space, born and bred in Australia, where we get, more local support, local development, local kind of understanding that it all kind of feeds into the product and the service. So I think the opportunity is there to get a great outcome from a support point of view.
I think the other thing to consider, and what we're seeing firsthand, is these HR software vendors, they're slick sales operators. They all have great cycles. They're all very well educated on the sales journey and tips and tricks that they all kind of have. But I think the important thing to consider is after that process, that really great experience that's engaging with a salesperson, what does it look like in the first 6 to 12 months time? Because that's critical. That's what you're going to be using on an everyday basis is new HR software. How are you supported by that same HR vendor, not to bring you on board, but to carry you through for success? And I've seen a lot of vendors do this really well, where they articulate that your success is our success, and they really invest into that methodology and idea that they really want to get the most out of their subscription with you, and will really collaborate on that point.
We work closely with vendors, we partner with them, and they are critical to this whole process. But they're sales-driven organizations, and we, and in particular, our clients and HR tech buyers at SMEs need to be realistic that, once that sales event has happened, there is support there and vendors are getting better at staying with you, but it is incumbent upon the client to own that process and to have planned up front about change management. How are we going to not just turn on a system, but change behaviors, change processes, change culture within our organizations to get the best out of this new piece of kit that's now sitting on the desk? So don't rely on a vendor to do that for you. That's core business for the HR team at an SME themselves to own that. We've got lots of best practice and experience in helping them develop the right plans, but that's something that a customer needs to do, and ongoing. Think of it, it's almost like a product ownership, product management point of view. This technology that we've got, we're going to continue to evolve and improve and implement it over time, and we'll own the success of that. We're not reliant on our vendor to do that for us.
Yeah, I think that's a very critical and important point. Something you touched on that will segue into the fourth trend and topic that we're going to talk about today is around another important event that does happen on a software vendor side is the implementation, I guess, going live and launching a new piece of tech. Talk to me about why it's such an important trend in today's space, particularly for SMEs.
Well, I think it's critical because, again, let's keep top of mind what is success here. Success is a fit-for-purpose, well-configured system live and working in your business. What is the single biggest risk that doesn't happen? A failure of implementation. It's a bigger likelihood to prevent that success than choosing the wrong system. So even though, our process at the front end is around procurement, helping you find the right partner, the right vendor, really at the end of the day, implementation is where the single biggest risk is, and we want to work with you to make sure that the solution that you've got, the internal capabilities, the implementation plan, the change management plan, all of that comes together in a cohesive way to take you on a pathway to implement and adopt and use and get best value from your system. So that's why implementation is critical.
We've got some stats here. 53% of implementations for HR software aren't delivered on time. 41% aren't completed on budget, and 56% are implemented without the intended benefits. So I think that speaks to a couple of key important pieces for me. The first would be being super clear on what MVP Go Live actually looks like, being able to clearly articulate and define criteria for success, meaning what do you want to happen when you go live? What are the kind of critical functions or features or processes that need to be live? 53% are completed on time. I think that speaks to being realistic about what you're trying to achieve in that implementation timeline, how well resourced you are internally. I think this is another kind of mixed match of what you're being sold versus what is the reality of investment of time and bandwidth. It is critical that you have appropriate resourcing to dedicate to a successful implementation and not just kind of falling back on your day-to-day job, being overwhelmed by that and then implementing a new system. It is a big process, but it will make everything else easier beyond go live. So we always talk to our customers, it is absolutely worth the pain that you're going to feel. But to be realistic, you need to ensure you have the appropriate resourcing to support you guys. And then the next is, 41% are completed within budget. I think that speaks to how easily these things can blow out or how much you might need external resourcing to come in and kind of do a bit of band-aid patchwork. What do those numbers mean to you?
Well, that was like the greatest hits of HR tech failure, all in one guy. So I think you've covered them all there, Jack. Let me try and kind of just unpack a few of those. But to be honest, everything you've just talked about touches back on some of these key trends we've been talking about. So, one, selecting the right platform and solutions that are going to be unified and compatible with your other legacy mission critical systems. Have you built out a change management and an implementation plan and an adoption plan so that you actually turn a system into an ecosystem of users who are doing what you want, changing processes and right up front, have you built out a realistic ROI? Have you built realistic expectations amongst stakeholders of what the changes are going to be and what they're going to mean financially, strategically, operationally? So this is a once in a decade kind of event within a small business. So it's completely understandable that small businesses don't necessarily have this muscle developed and strong in making all these choices and doing all of this work. And so that's why bringing in partners to help fill out those gaps is critical also to success. So I think what you just articulated are absolutely the biggest risks, the biggest causes of failure, and what any buyer of HR tech software needs to deliberately and purposely kind of cross off their list as they're going through that process.
I think another very important piece when we think about the success of implementation and, I guess what the market has all heard, like a lot of horror stories, even the best software fails without the right implementation kind of plan and methodology and resourcing to ensure it goes live successfully. Talk to me about how the best software can still get it wrong. What does that mean?
Selecting a solution that you hope is going to be your partner is the start. We've talked about it already. You just listed it off there. You need all of the other ingredients for success. You need stakeholder engagement and support, executives, frontline workers. You need the right solution. You need a plan and the right capabilities and resources for implementation. You need a clear view of how your business operationally, process-wise, structurally-wise is going to change. All of that has to be in place, thought through, cohesive in order to get a successful transformation. So yeah, I think it shouldn't be surprising that just choosing the market-leading kind of known brand software isn't enough.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed success. I think another point to add to that around how do we ensure the success of that is it's a simple trick, and I do have a sneaky little trick that we're going to say for the end of this podcast, specifically aligned to implementation, what we've learned over the last 24 months doing this for our customers. But one aligned to your point around stakeholder engagement, it doesn't necessarily just have to be internally or looking for more champions who can help support or advocate for the implementation. But if you're working with implementation partners, whether that be directly through the software vendor or external like Digital Directions, there's a lot of opportunity to get their recommendations, their feedback, and get them to help you evaluate your plan and just get together and really map it out rather than just going, this is what we're trying to do. Really critically evaluate it with external support, with experts who do this every single day, not just once a decade.
It's a great point. For HR sponsors looking to get engagement to invest in a technology platform like this, you don't have to be the author. You don't have to be the creator of all of these plans. What you can be is the curator. You leverage the resources that are at your fingertips from vendors, from advisors like us, from implementation partners. Be a thoughtful kind of assembler of that information to develop a plan that is right for your organization. Because again, the other thing, and we talked about implementations just a moment ago, vendors will be able to give you a playbook. But again, it's their off-the-shelf version. It's their generic approach that probably covers 80% of what's relevant to you. But it's up to you to kind of work at the margins. What makes your business unique? What are the challenges that you face? How do we customize that plan to make it right for you, to bridge that gap and make it 100% appropriate? That's what you need to be able to do. And there are partners out there to help you with that challenge.
And I think being able to kind of articulate the uniqueness of your business and what separates you, what your processes are, and sharing that early with a software vendor is super critical so that they can help you in unpacking the best implementation plan. And I think another point here that is really crucial is asking early to meet with the people internally or externally who's going to help you roll out the systems before purchasing and kind of signing up to new technology, is actually getting a plan together early of how you would roll this out. Because I think you said it earlier, you can go out and just buy the best known brand, but without a great implementation plan, it's not going to be successful. And I think it's something you should think about very early in the conversation or the transformation journey, is not just who is the right software vendor we're going to buy, but how are we going to roll this out? What is the change management process that comes with that? And how are we going to deliver a great deployment on time and on budget?
There's a lot of great vendors out there, all of whom will do 80% of the stuff to a absolutely kind of threshold level. It's about you understanding your own business. What are those handful of things, and we use this term when we're going through our ideal vendor profile process, what are the killer scenarios for your business? Get them on the table. That way you're not left kind of going through 20-page tick and flick kind of lists of requirements. We've identified the things that are unique to us, critical to us, and that's what we focus the conversation on with our vendors. We drill them on that. Can they do that in the way that meets our needs so that their software fits us rather than us having to bend our our company and our processes and our way of doing business to work around how a platform works.
The fifth and final trend that we're going to discuss today is a bit of a biggie. It's AI in the HR software vendor space. Talk to me a little bit about what does the AI mean to us? Should we be intimidated by it? Should we kind of lean into it? Is it here to stay? Is it still a fad? What does AI mean to you? And in the context of Australian SMEs engaging with AI?
I mean, it had to be AI. I think it's part of our consultant's code that we must speak about AI, so I'm glad we got to this topic. I think the first thing to say is we must all recognise by now that AI isn't just hype. It's not a fad, it's here to stay. And so there is no doubt that HR leaders, people leaders, not only will they be wanting to leverage AI, but they will be expected. Their stakeholders are going to be looking to them, what are you doing? They need to be able to confidently answer that question and not get forced into action that they don't really understand just to be seen to be doing something. So we want to give people the tools to make sensible, kind of impactful decisions around AI. So I think that's the context. So when it comes to people's systems, I think, one thing to start with is don't think about AI as a kind of whole nother separate technology silo and dimension out there. You already have people's systems. Those vendors are investing in AI right now to make the systems you already have better. That's a great place to start on your journey around leveraging AI, leveraging capabilities. It doesn't require additional investment. You already understand the tools. So just get to know what those vendors are doing and start to leverage that and build that into your teams and their day-to-day activity. So I think that's a great place to start. Then I think the other thing around for HR managers and people leaders, they need to kind of own the narrative. And by that I mean the narrative going up, and that's talking about ROI. What kind of ROI are we going to be generating? Think about ROI as an efficiency play. All right. I don't think we should be kind of talking about how this is going to allow us to slash and burn, headcount, but it's about making our people more efficient. Mm. And then, the other part of the narrative that is critical, and I just kind of referenced it, is how do we engage with and reassure our teams, our employees, our workforce that AI is not a threat, it's actually an opportunity. And we do that by reassuring them and reinforcing that AI is here to augment them. It's here to make them more effective, more productive, more powerful, do more in any given time, not to replace them. So I think if leaders and managers can start to own and control the narrative in that way, that's a good starting point.
I think you've highlighted a couple of key points that I want to dive into. One is that last piece around effectiveness to the business and being more valuable in my eyes, strategic initiatives. You now have more time to think more long-term and more strategic around how we're going to utilize a new system that is powered by AI and being able to lean into that and get more out of it, making us more valuable back to the business. That I think is a really important piece. But an earlier one is around whether you're looking to purchase new HR software or you're leveraging existing people's systems. Ask the questions, ask the HR software vendors for product updates, how they're currently thinking about AI, how they're going to be enriching that. I think it's a key indicator of, what that vendor is looking to do for their customers to maximize product features. And obviously features isn't everything. There's something we're not really talking about today, but I think AI as a feature within a product is so important to go, how do our customers get more out of a system or become more effective and more efficient by utilizing our tools? So have a conversation. If you're an existing customer, speak to your CSM. Go have a conversation about their product roadmap. If you're looking to purchase and you're procuring technology right now, ask a question during your sales conversations. Look for a demo. Speak to the product owners. What are they thinking about AI? What do they think about the next 5-10 years of leveraging AI within that kind of particular product?
I think it's great advice because almost the gut reaction, if I'm a business leader, a people leader, a new kind of technology like AI, how am I going to become an expert on it? And that kind of, where to start? You've just outlined how you can go and get information in a really consumable and accessible way from a partner that's invested in your success. So I think the first thing to think of is don't feel like you need to be the expert. The other thing that I would advise people, leaders and managers when they're thinking about AI is that we're now far enough into the life cycle that there are good, mature, market-proven use cases in HR for AI. That's low-hanging fruit. Go and start there. Screening of candidates, improving kind of analysis of data. These are things that are already out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So if you want to be seen to be doing something in AI, you want to start to be proving a return, go for the low-hanging fruit. Start to build your own learning and understanding and momentum. And once you've got that kind of as a platform, then you can perhaps look to kind of expand from there. But that would be my advice to people kind of facing this challenge.
The next question I was going to ask you, you've answered it a little bit there, but maybe we could dive into it a little bit deeper, was where we are today. Again, we're talking about trends. Where is it today in terms of the impact AI is having on HR software? What is it enabling currently? What's the most crucial kind of feature or, I guess, solution or outcome that it's providing to HR or people leaders?
Yeah, Jack, and you've picked up on that right away, that like we just said, I think recruitment is certainly leading the charge in terms of areas where AI is already taking hold. We just talked about screening of candidates and smoothing the onboarding process, building out workflows. That's a great area to focus on. We talked as well about data analytics. Under that theme of unification and a single source of data and a single record for truth, AI is a great tool to then make more insight and generate better decisions from that repository of data that SMEs are sitting on. But it goes much more broadly than that. So learning and development, training videos. There's so many other potential applications for AI that we're starting to see in the market that, based on your business need, people leaders can be looking at. But again, I think that last point is probably something to keep top of mind. Don't go out there kind of with a solution looking for a problem. Be led by your business needs. What challenges are you facing in your people function? And then from there, think about what role AI has to play.
I think that's really well said. Based on the conversation, and we're talking about AI, it sounds like we're leaning into it. It's here to stay. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely here to stay. Be confident that you don't need to be a technologist by being a great people leader. This is another tool at your disposal. Walk before you run. Look for low-hanging fruit. Look for proven use cases that you can start to leverage in your business to get momentum, to build confidence. And then, just be business-led. You know what the problems and the challenges are that you're facing in your HR function. Let that guide you as to where next AI can be a tool for you.
Being curious and understanding how other customers and businesses and HR software vendors are planning for it or currently utilizing it. And it might just give you some ideas on, okay, maybe we could start to look and invest in this area, or potentially get some efficiency gains in something that you might not have considered. So always be curious and look to collaborate with, plenty of different HR forums and mediums to actually share and get some insights.
Okay, Jack, we're getting towards the end of the show. Now, you've been holding out on us. You teased earlier that you had a life-changing tip for us. Let's hear it, please.
Life-changing is strong, but we'll go with this. So the key tip for a successful implementation that we're going to share with you today is particularly aligned to the change management piece. Far too often we're seeing customers leave communication plans and rollout way too late in the conversation. Start to think early on. Who is the cohort, the audience that we're rolling this out to? What are the right mechanisms to deliver this message that a new piece of software is coming? And so The tip today, change management, start the communication process early. Think about the right infrastructure to support that, as well as the internal champions who can also help with the messaging, whether that's the leadership team, the management level, or creating other kind of internal key champions. Getting that message out across early and starting the process of actually delivering messaging early is crucial to the success of change management.
That's brilliant, Jack.
Life-changing?
I'm calling it life-changing, but yeah, you're speaking my language there. I think bring people along the journey early, and so yeah, understanding personas, understanding experience, the journey that we want to take them on is critical. So yeah, I think that's a great tip.
Awesome. Well, look, that's about time for us today. Thank you so much for joining me for podcast number 3 on the Digital Directions Show. We're going to, before we wrap up, just shout it out to everyone in the audience. In episode number 4, we have a very special guest coming on board. Without naming names, tell us who's coming on board and what they've got to look forward to.
We have a leading industry expert, worked globally, now based here in Brisbane, in the field of change management. They're a boutique consulting firm, helping tech leaders in particular navigate some of the people-related issues around transformation. So we think it's really fertile territory for conversation. We're looking forward to having that guest join us very soon, and would love to get some questions and thoughts and feedback from the audience as to where they'd like us to take that conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting and fun conversation. There's going to be a lot of value for our audience. And so please reach out to us, give us a DM or drop a comment below. Any questions that you have for our special guest, we'll be sure to have a list ready to go to ask them for the day. But yeah, really looking forward to that. Perfect. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.